Well, it's been a minute. Just about 5 months, I think, since my last episode, and I do apologize for that, but, life. I say that every time there's a huge gap, and I make no promises that I'm gonna make consistent uploads. I'm terribly, terribly sorry for that. However, we're gonna put one up now anyway, why not? I was watching a movie recently, I'm not gonna say which one because it's kind of lame, and it got me kind of in the mood to talk about some Mesopotamian gods. Mainly Ishtar. She was a god of love and bonds and community and romantic love and sexual love and familial love. All kinds of love with Ishtar. So let's just get into it. This is Ishtar, the Mesopotamian god of love.
Ominous. Ominous. It is an adjective.
Sounds like someone breathing.
Ominous.
So as always, a lot of this information is going to come from ancientorigins.net because it's a great resource, and I really like the way they write their articles. Speaking of, let's just dive into Ishtar here. Now, in recent times, we have been really obsessed with strong female protagonists. It's a shame that we haven't always been, but things are starting to progress, and that's a great thing. So from Aphrodite to Wonder Woman to Lara Croft, we have strong female heroes, and Ishtar might even be one of the first, if not the first. Interest in her can be traced back to our earliest known records. Ishtar, which is a word that comes from the Akkadian language, was known as Inanna in Sumerian, and she was one of the first deities for which we have written evidence. She was closely related to romantic love, but also familial love, the loving bonds between communities, and of course, sexual love. Wow. I am so sorry for that. She was also a warrior deity with a potent capacity for vengeance, as her lover would find out. These seemingly opposing personalities have raised scholarly eyebrows both in ancient and modern times. Ishtar is a love deity who is terrifying on the battlefield. Her beauty is the subject of love, poetry, and her rage, likened to a destructive storm. But in her capacity to shape destinies and fortunes, they are two sides of the same coin. The earliest poems to Ishtar were written by Enheduanna, the world's first individually identified author. Enheduanna, from circa around 2300 BCE, is generally considered to have been a historical figure living in Ur, one of the world's oldest urban centers. She was a priestess to the moon god and the daughter of Sargon of Akkad, or Sargon the Great, the first ruler to unite northern and southern Mesopotamia and found the powerful Akkadian Empire. The sources for Enheduanna's life and career are historical, literary, and archaeological. She commissioned an alabaster relief, the Disc of Enheduanna, which is inscribed with her dedication. In her poetry, she reveals the diversity of Ishtar, including her superlative capacity for armed conflict and her ability to bring out abrupt changes in status and fortune. This ability was well suited to a goddess of love and war, both areas where swift reversals can take place, utterly changing the state of play. On the battlefield, the goddess's ability to fix fates ensured victory. In love magic, Ishtar's power could alter romantic fortunes. In ancient love charms, her influence was invoked to win or indeed capture the hearts or other body parts of a desired lover. Ishtar is described by herself in love poems and by others as a beautiful young woman. Her lover, Tammuz, compliments her on the beauty of her eyes, a seemingly timeless form of flattery, with a literary history stretching back to around 2100 BCE. Ishtar and Tammuz are the protagonists of one of the world's first love stories. In love poetry telling of their courtship, the two have a very affectionate relationship, but like many great love stories, their union ends in tragedy. The most famous account of this myth is Ishtar's descent into the underworld by an unknown author. This ancient narrative, surviving the Sumerian and Akkadian versions, both written in cuneiform, was only deciphered in the 19th century. It begins with Ishtar's decision to visit the realm of her sister, Ereshkigal, queen of the underworld. Ostensibly, she is visiting her sister to mourn the death of her brother-in-law. possibly the Bull of Heaven who appears in the Epic of Gilgamesh. But the other gods in the story view the move as an attempt at a hostile takeover. Ishtar was known for being extremely ambitious. In other myths, she storms the heavens and stages a divine coup. Any questions over Ishtar's motives are settled by the description of her preparation for her journey. She carefully applies makeup and jewelry and wraps herself in beautiful clothing. Ishtar is frequently described applying cosmetics and enhancing her appearance before undertaking battle or before meeting a lover. Much as a male warrior might put on a breastplate before a fight, Ishtar lines her eyes with mascara. She's the original power dresser. Her enrichment of her beauty and her choice of clothes accentuates her potency. Next, in a somewhat humorous scene brimming with irony, the goddess instructs her faithful handmaiden on how to behave if Ishtar becomes trapped in the netherworld. First, Ninshabar, the handmaiden, must clothe herself in a correct mourning attire, such as a sackcloth, and create a disheveled appearance. Then she must go to the temples of the great gods and ask for help to rescue her mistress. Ishtar's instructions that her handmaiden dress in appropriate somber mourning wear are a stark contrast to her own flashy attire. But when Ershkigal learns that Ishtar is dressed so well, she realizes she had come to conquer the underworld. So she devises a plan to literally strip Ishtar of her power. Once arriving at Ishkigal's home, Ishtar descends through the 7 gates of the underworld. At each gate, she is instructed to remove an item of clothing. When she is before her sister, Ishtar is naked, and Ershkigal kills her at once. Her death has terrible consequences, involving the cessation of all earthly sexual intimacy and fertility. So, on the advice of Ishtar's handmaiden, Ea, the god of wisdom, facilitates a plot to revive Ishtar and return her to the upper world. His plot succeeds, but there is an ancient Mesopotamian saying, "No one comes back from the underworld unmarked." Once a space has been created in the underworld, it is thought that it couldn't be left empty. Ishtar is instructed to ascend with a band of demons to the upper world and find her own replacement. In the world above, Ishtar sees Tammuz dressed regally and relaxing on a throne, apparently unaffected by her death. Enraged, she instructs the demons to take him away with them. Ishtar's role in her husband's demise has earned her reputation as being somewhat fickle. But this assessment does not capture the complexity of the goddess's role. Ishtar is portrayed in the myth of her descent and elsewhere as capable of intense faithfulness. Rather than being fickle, her role in her husband's death shows her vengeful nature. Now, maybe a bit cliche, but women and vengeance proved to be a popular combination in myths of the ancient Greece and Rome eras, where powerful women such as Electra, Clytemnestra, and Medea brought terrible consequences on those who they perceived to be wronging them. This theme has continued to fascinate audience to the present day. The concept is encapsulated by the line, often misattributed to Shakespeare, from William Congreve's The Mourning Bride. "Heaven has no rage like the love to hatred turned, nor hell hath fury like a woman scorned." Before she sees her husband relaxing after her death, Ishtar first encounters her handmaiden, Ninshubur, and her 2 sons. The son is described as the goddess's manicurist and hairdresser, and the other is a warrior. All 3 are spared by the goddess due to their faithful service and their overt expression of grief over Ishtar's death. They are each described lying in dust, dressed in rags. The diligent behavior of Ishtar's attendants is a juxtaposition against the actions of Tammuz, a damning contrast that demonstrates his lack of appropriate mourning behavior. Loyalty is the main criteria Ishtar uses to choose who will replace her in the underworld, and this hardly makes her faithless. Ishtar's pursuit of revenge in ancient myths is an extension of her close connection to the dispensation of justice and the maintenance of universal order. Love and war are both forces with potential to create chaos and confusion, and the deity associated with them needed to be able to restore order as well as disrupt it. Still, love in Mesopotamia could survive death. Even for Tammuz, love was a salvation and protection. The faithful love of his sister allowed for his eventual return from the underworld. Love, as they say, never dies, but in the rare case where it might momentarily expire, it's best to mourn appropriately. Ishtar was one of the most popular deities of the Mesopotamian pantheon, yet in the modern day she has slipped almost into anonymity. Ishtar's legacy is most clearly seen through her influence on later cultural archetypes, with her image contributing to the development of the most famous love goddess of them all, Aphrodite. Ishtar turns up in science fiction, notably as a beautiful yet self-destructive stripper in Neil Gaiman's comic The Sandman, Brief Lives. Gaiman's exceptional command of Mesopotamian myth suggests the stripping of Ishtar may involve a wink to the ancient narrative in her traditional descent to the underworld. She is not directly referenced in the 1987 film that carries her name, received poorly but now has somewhat of a cult classic, although the lead female character, Shira, shows some similarities to the goddess. In the graphic novel tradition, Aphrodite is created with shaping the image of Wonder Woman, and Aphrodite's own image was influenced by Ishtar. The connection may partially explain the intriguing similarities between Ishtar and the modern superhero. Both figures are represented as warriors who grace the battlefield wearing bracelets and a tiara, brandishing a rope weapon, and demonstrating love, loyalty, and fierce commitment to justice. Ishtar, like other love goddesses, have been linked to ancient sexual and fertility rituals, although the evidence for this is up to debate, and frequently overshadows the deity's many other fascinating qualities. Exploring the image of the world's first goddess provides insight into Mesopotamian culture, and the enduring power of love through the ages. In the modern day, love is said to conquer all, and in the ancient world, Ishtar did just that. I know this was a bit of a shorter episode, but I do hope you enjoyed it. My first one back in a long time, so let me get my feet wet, and hopefully this leads to some more. I can't promise anything, but here we are with another episode in May, with the last one being in January. So yeah, there's that. It's a start. Give it to me. Anyway, if you did like what you heard, please feel free to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify or on Apple iTunes. It would do the show a great service, even if I don't deserve it for being away for 5 months or 6 months or however long it's really been. Anyway, I hope you did enjoy. My name is Casey, and this is the Ominous Origins Podcast.